Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Flat Smack, where we put the smack down on the flat earth idiocy. In this video, I once again go after Dr. John D. I expose his tactics of avoiding questions and ignoring evidence by using fallacies. And I show you how you can shut this argument down. Trust me, you don't want to miss it, so stick around.
There are trolls, and there are trolls. I received this email. The legendary weapon. I have seen your video. I have taken into consideration what you said, but we have proved with stars, tides, ships, and satellite photos, it's round. I'm looking forward to your response, as you only did a single test that proves nothing, as it is only using light. My reply. Good evening and thanks for your email. You state, we have proved. Who is we? You haven't proved anything to do with the shape of the earth, and that statement is a fallacy. It is an appeal to authority. That is the same as saying God is real because the Pope says so. That is not proof. Please provide the empirical scientific evidence based on the scientific method that is repeatable and reproducible that you live on a globe. I don't mean appeals to authority and fallacies and replies that say something like, lots of experiments have proved that, or that was proved 1,000 years ago. I ask again, please send the empirical scientific evidence based on the scientific method that is repeatable and reproducible that you live on a globe.
Right away, we see two very telling things. First, he pulls the classic Nathan Thompson standard flat earth argument of calling this statement from the legendary weapon an appeal to authority fallacy. You see, this is what every flat earther does. Anytime you make an argument, they simply say it is a fallacy of some sort and then dodge the question. In this case, it is apparently a fallacy to mention the fact that the shape of the earth is settled science and has been proven by an overabundance of evidence. Instead of addressing this fact that all of the evidence does exist, he simply calls it a fallacy to discuss it. The second thing he does, which is very telling about this fake PhD, is that he asks the legendary weapon to provide evidence based on the scientific method which is repeatable and reproducible. A real PhD would already have access to all of this research, which is why there is not a single solitary real PhD on the globe who believes that the earth is flat. All right, so now let's look at how my interaction with Dr. John D., Dr. in quotation marks, John D., went. Here's the first email that I sent him. Hello, Dr. D. I have a couple of questions for you and would love it if you could answer them. I'm going to include a picture that I believe shows the sun below a mountain and casting a shadow onto the clouds. To me, this is clearly the sun dropping behind the horizon due to the curve of the earth. Now, my new flat earth friend says that you're the expert and that you have a different answer, and it has to do with light refraction. He says that you're a PhD. So my second question is, what are your credentials? Where did you go to school? And what's your last name? So here's the photograph that I sent him. We've all seen this. As you can see, it's a picture of the sun clearly going down behind the horizon, below the horizon, and shining up, illuminating the bottom of the clouds, and causing this mountain to cast a shadow on the underside of the clouds. So, here is the reply that I received from Dr. D. Air fingers quote, Dr. D. Firstly, I appreciate your friend's compliment, but I'm no expert. Haha. I don't even know where I live. I'm just asking questions like yourself and many other people. Yes, I do have a PhD, etc., but that is unimportant. Yeah, it's unimportant because he didn't have one. Hint, hint. We are just people with questions and trying to find the truth. Yada, 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 yada. So then he goes to the next paragraph. Here's where he gets to it. This is where we know where we're going. You have claimed, quote, to me, this is clearly the sun dropping behind the horizon due to the curve of the earth, close quote. To make this statement, you have assumed that we live on a sphere. First, you must prove we live on a sphere before making the statement. Otherwise, the statement is an affirming the consequent fallacy. And boom, there it is. First response to me, bam, it's a fallacy, yada yada. Okay? Then he goes on to say, could you provide scientific proof we live on a sphere? If you could scientifically prove it, yada yada. He goes on. So he wants scientific evidence that we live on a sphere. Okay. So I need to give him empirical, scientific evidence that is what? What does he want? He wants it to be reproducible and repeatable. Okay. Let's look at what I sent him for that. Because Mr. D had asked for empirical scientific evidence, I sent him this email, which is in which I stated, since you want repeatable and reproducible, here are 2 experiments that I've done myself, which you can do yourself, to prove that the Earth is rotating and the effects can only occur on a rotating sphere. First, I purchased this scale and this 500-gram weight on Amazon. I gave him the link to both. Total cost is around $26. Then I explained how to use them. Calibrate the scale using the weight to 500 grams. I flew to my cousin's house. It's about a little over 500 miles away. I think 537 miles away. It's in Bradenton, Florida. Weighed the weight there. It weighed slightly less than 500 grams. After my visit, flew back home, reweighed the weight. It once again weighed 500 grams. I told him he could do this even without having to fly. He could simply just drive about 250 miles either north or south and notice a change in the weight. I gave him a second experiment to do, which would require him to be on an aircraft, but I did lay out, as you can see in this email, exactly how to do it. His response was, well, what I expected. What you have provided is not empirical scientific evidence that has been produced by the scientific method and can be tested to prove that it is repeatable and reproducible as requested. So, you cannot repeat my experiment and reproduce with my experiment. That's interesting because several other people have done this experiment, including Wolfie 2060, who has a YouTube channel and who I will link to in the description, and who has also done this experiment and videoed it. So the experiment is valid, and the experiment is repeatable and reproducible. What he does here is just ignore those facts, moves past it, never addresses what could be the cause at all. At this point, I become frustrated with him, and I ask him what qualifies him to judge my methods as scientific, considering the fact that he's basically lying about his scientific background. And at this point, he takes the opportunity to just bow out and says that you've made the claim that the Earth is a globe. You made the claim that I've asked for empirical scientific evidence using the scientific method, yada yada. You failed to provide the appropriate requested evidence, but instead have appealed to authority, made logical fallacies, and resorted to swearing ad hominem attacks. This conversation has no fruitful direction for either of us, so it is best that it finishes. I wish you all the best in your endeavors, whatever they may be, John. Isn't that nice? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to show you how to shut down this type of bullshit. Whenever you give any kind of evidence and the only thing you get back are remarks about you making certain logical fallacies, never addressing your evidence, but simply stating that you made this fallacy or that fallacy or this fallacy, I'm going to show you how to shut that down. But before I do, let me tell you of one major fallacy that this particular asshole has made. The major fallacy he has perpetrated is the appeal to false authority. That is when someone with no expertise to speak on an issue is cited as an authority. He lists himself as a PhD in spectrophotometry in order to give the air of authority. That is a major fallacy. But that's not the only fallacy. What he does in general and what all flat earthers do is this next fallacy that you can smack them all down with. Anytime they come at you with a fallacy argument, you hit them back with this. Arguing from fallacy. Presuming that a claim must be wrong because it was based on a logical fallacy. You see, this is what they do. They never argue any evidence because they don't have any. They simply argue fallacies. And that in itself is a fallacy. You hit them with this, it shuts them up. You hit them with this, and it smacks them down. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's all the time I have today. Just remember, the next time you give a flat earther well-reasoned and scientific evidence as to the shape of the earth, and their reply is to simply point out your logical fallacies, just let them know that arguing from fallacy is also a fallacy, and that will shut them up and smack them down. If you enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe. Share this video with as many people as you can, and be sure to leave a comment in the comment section below. Until next time, keep smacking them down.